Welcome to Charlie Brown's Kitchen. Today we are going to make something I grew up eating as a kid and I loved, but for the past 40 or so years I haven't seen. And the other day I was looking around on YouTube and I found the recipe for Czech bread dumplings, otherwise known as Bohemian dumplings. And I'm using a recipe from the Czech Cookbook, I believe, YouTube website, to make dumplings that I grew up with eating and loving, and I haven't seen in like forever. Okay, the recipe calls for 3.5 cups of Wondra flour, okay, and 3.5 cups is about 1.5 of these containers. So this one's empty. This one still has some left that we're going to spread out on our breadboard when we are kneading the dough. So I have 3.5 cups of Wondra flour in here with, what did I put in here? Salt, with a teaspoon of salt. We're going to be adding an egg. We're going to be adding an egg. But first we have to do is put our active dry yeast into some milk, but we have to warm. This is 1.5 cups of milk with a teaspoon or so of sugar to feed the yeast. We have to warm it a little in the microwave. So you want to warm the milk to let the yeast activate and devour the sugar. I guess your microwave time will vary depending on the bowl you're using and how cold it was, and my milk was very cold when it started. So you want the milk, yeah, you can see the milk. The milk is here. It's warm. You just want it to be warm to the touch. Then we're going to put in our yeast. And we have to let this yeast mixture kind of cook or ferment or whatever it does for about 10 minutes. So we kind of mixed in the milk. We kind of mixed the yeast in with the milk and sugar. And we'll let that set for 10 minutes. No, I'm not going to video the whole 10 minutes we're sitting here doing nothing. But I am going to put the 1 egg that we need into the flour and salt mixture here. So you can let that set while the yeast is cooking. So our yeast and milk and sugar mixture is cooked for about 10 minutes. And if you can see, if the camera's picking it up, there's like bubbles on top. And they say that's how you know the yeast is alive and working. So we get to add this mix to our flour and egg. The gal on YouTube says to make sure to scrape in any extra sugar in the bottom of the bowl. So now we get to let the mixer do its job. I've got a bread hook on here, and yeah, this is a KitchenAid mixer. I say start it slow. Then increase the speed. So this may knead for about 5 minutes. So it's been a few minutes stirring, and you can see the dough is starting to form a lump around the hook. So you can see that. Pretty nice thick dough mixture. You can see the dough mixture. Okay, so what we have to do is let this dough rise. So I think I'm going to put it in another bowl. So I'm going to put a little flour in the bottom of this bowl. Dough ball's really thick. So we got a nice thick dough. Again, we're making Czech bread dumplings. So this is a simple bread mix, or bread dough. Now, I've had my oven heating up to about 175 degrees just to give the dough a nice warm space to rise. The oven is now off. So we are going to cover the dough, and we are going to put this in the oven, which is turned off, and let it rise for about an hour. If you don't put it in an oven at room temperature, they say it takes about 2 hours to rise. So you can cut the rise time in half by putting this dough in a warm oven. So we've let our dough rise for about an hour. We had it in a warm oven. And you can see it has expanded out. It has risen. We're going to need this again later. I've got a pot of boiling water, or no, I have a pot of water to boil on the stove. It's not boiling yet. Okay, so this is not too hot. So what we need to do is sprinkle out some flour. Blend your flour. And we need to get this dough out of the bowl. There you go, it's coming. So we got the dough out of the bowl, for the most part. Okay, now what our Czech Cookbook says, our Czech Cookbook chef, or whoever she is, says to knead the dough a little bit. She called it letting some of the air out. So we'll knead that a little. Okay. Then what our Czech expert says is to cut this into 3 pieces to make 3 dumplings. Now she had like a big bread knife, but this cleaver will work just fine. So we've got our 3 pieces. So the dough is still warm. So what she says, now I've not made these before in my life. I've seen them made. My family made them a lot when I was young. So what she says now to roll these out into little dumpling shapes. So we're getting our 3 bread dumplings. Now, there we go, we have our 3 dough balls. Now, we have to let these rise again for another 15 minutes. So we're going to cover them. We're going to cover these and come back in 15 minutes. Then we're actually going to put these in a pot of boiling water, believe it or not. So it's been about 15 minutes since we covered these up, and you can see they have expanded out some. Not quite as pretty as the lady on the YouTube channels, but these will do. I'll grab these two for now. This one we might come back for. So we got a pot of boiling water. She says to do this without the lid. So we're going to take our dumplings and carefully put them in the water. Looks like the two is about right. We'll have to do the third one, the third dumpling, a little later. Now, we let these basically cook in the boiling water for about 10 minutes, and then we flip them over. Now we're coming up on the 10-minute part, and you can see the dumplings have expanded, just as advertised. Now what we're supposed to do is flip them over. There you go. I guess that was a messy flip, but it's a flip. This is my first time making these. I grew up on these with my family, but this is the first time I'm making these. Okay, now on the second side, these also have to cook for another 10 minutes. So my first two dumplings I ever made are finishing up their second 10 minutes in boiling salt water. I don't know if I mentioned that earlier, but they are cooking in salt water. Looking good so far. This is what I remember from my childhood. Of course, back then I never got to operate the cookware, but I get to now. So let's get these two out. Now the Czech Cook has got a dumpling spatula that I actually have on order, because I anticipate I'm going to make a lot more of these. Okay. Now what she says is you got to poke these to let the steam out. Although she didn't really specify how much poking. Now we're going to take our third dumpling. It's been sitting here. Kind of needs some support. So we're going to take our third dumpling, put it in its hot water bath, and start the clock cooking. So we got another 10 minutes on side A, and another flip it over, and 10 minutes on side B. And that should give time for these to cool and be good enough ready to eat. Now, my Sue did make some beef stew yesterday, which I have warming up in the microwave. So we're going to have these. We're going to have some dumplings and stew, and probably a German beer. This is a good hearty German or Czechoslovakian meal. It was Czech when I was growing up. I understand the German version is potato dumplings. We might have to get into those one day. This one's just starting its 10 minutes of cooking. Again, you cook these with the lid off, so this is a great way to heat up your home in the winter time. We are finishing up our first 10-minute side A, boiling in salt water, of my third dumpling ever. Time to flip it over and do the B side for another 10 minutes in the boiling water. So let's see if we can do the flip. There we go. It's been flipped. Not as nice as the well-experienced Czech cook, but I bet you these things taste really good. At least they're going to taste good to me. So we have to let this boil on side B for another 10 minutes. So I've taste tested my dumplings, and they are exactly or better than I remember. These things are great. Now you ask, what do they taste like? Well, they really don't taste like anything. What the beauty of these are is they take on the taste of whatever you're having with them. Okay, so my Sue made beef stew yesterday, so we cover these dumplings with the stew. It's a nice thick stew, and they really take on or complement the taste of the stew. So there you go. Here's my meal for today. Still hot and steamy, but we'll go back and take care of our remaining dumpling that's cooking on side B, and then this will be ready to eat, hopefully. Have to look at the size of the dumpling when I put it in the pot and between what it is now. But we're finishing up our second 10 minutes on side B. So these dumplings rest in boiling water, gently boiling water they call it, for about 20 minutes a piece. And then they're done. Well, you let them cool down first. But this one's ready to come out of its water bath. There you go. Now you have to poke. So the cooking is done. Getting out the frosted beer mug. This is my fourth can of this, so I'm not going through it very fast if you're monitoring. Then I have to try some different kinds of German beer. But this is the German wheat beer, which, now that I'm thinking about this, is going to be an excellent taste complement to go with the dumplings and beef stew. So we're really having a hearty meal here. There you go. I'm off to eat and make a video for you.